You've heard us talking about how yoga improves your flexibility and balance. It improves posture, supports good joint health, and enhances your cardiovascular health. Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department offers yoga classes at SportsCom, the Patterson Community Center, and the St. Clair Senior Center. Phone Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation for information about their yoga classes. Learn more about the history of our community. Head over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse, Saturday anytime between 9 in the morning and noon. Just drop by. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
When illness or injury turns everyday moments into uphill battles, there are medical professionals who step in with skill, compassion, and unwavering dedication. My name is Joey P. I'm CEO of Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, and we are proud to highlight this month's MMC Heart for Healing recipient.
We recognize Dr. Sean Horwitz, a surgeon at MMC, whose reputation is built on as much his heart as it is his hands. Dr. Horwitz makes every patient feel like his priority. Whether performing complex robotic surgery or providing life-changing breast care, he combines elite technical precision with a rare, compassionate touch that truly defines him. Dr. Sean Horwitz, our MMC Heart for Healing.
If a doctor, nurse, or medical professional has made a difference in your life, tell WGNS. Help us recognize the medical heroes in our community by nominating them for the MMC Heart for Healing Award, and help us recognize the medical heroes in our community.
Market declines, unemployment, oil prices. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones Financial Advisor Lee Colvin. I'll work with you to help you understand the impact of short-term events and how to be positioned for the long term. We provide the tools for a disciplined approach to investing. Call 615-907-7056 for an opportunity to discuss your situation. Edward Jones, Making Sense of Investing, member SIPC.
Ascension St. Thomas Heart is the leader in Middle Tennessee for heart care, providing the most advanced options, including heart surgery and transplants. Our nationally recognized cardiac team cares for more adult hearts than anyone in the state, from AFib to heart failure, using minimally invasive options when possible to help shorten recovery, making Ascension St. Thomas Heart your first choice for routine heart care and cardiac emergencies. Schedule a heart screening or find a cardiologist at ascension.org/St. Thomas Heart.
It's All That's News with Matt Lane on News Radio WGNS.
Let's update today's top national stories next on All That's News.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS Murfreesboro, W270AF Murfreesboro, W263AI Murfreesboro, Smyrna.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Peter King. President Trump is talking about a big change he'd like to see in Iran. His remarks coming after a visit to U.S. troops at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Here's CBS's Linda Kenyon.
Talks are ongoing between the U.S. and Iran as President Trump insists Iran end its nuclear program.
So far, they do a lot of talking and no action.
One action the president says he would like to see is a regime change in Iran.
Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen.
In the meantime, Trump is ramping up the U.S. military presence in the Middle East.
Tremendous power has arrived, and additional power, as you know, another carrier is going out shortly.
Linda Kenyon, CBS News, the White House.
Trump is also promising changes to an election process he claims is corrupt. CBS's Cammie McCormick says he's demanding Congress enact tough voter ID laws to go into effect with this fall's elections.
President Trump, in a Truth Social post, called on Republicans to put the issue at the top of every speech. He called it a can't miss for re-election in the midterms. He said if Congress won't approve new laws, he'll present them in the form of an executive order.
The partial government shutdown is about 6 hours away after Democrats and Republicans failed to come up with a compromise for restrictions on what ICE can and cannot do. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
It appears increasingly likely that at midnight tonight, DHS funding for the Coast Guard, for FEMA, and for TSA will lapse. Why? Because Donald Trump and Republicans have decided that they have zero interest in getting ICE under control.
Investigators hope the evidence they've found this week leads them to Nancy Guthrie nearly 2 weeks after the 84-year-old woman vanished. CBS's Andres Gutierrez is in Tucson.
Investigators did recover gloves during a search of Nancy's neighborhood. A pair was found about 1.5 miles away from here, and those have also been sent out for testing. Authorities confirmed that they have received some DNA evidence results back, but none of them have led to a name for this suspect.
Tomorrow marks 8 years since the shootings that killed 17 people at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. CBS Miami's Steve McGarry says the Broward County School District commemorated the date today with a day of service.
For these students, it's a moment of reflection, reminding them to remember the 17 people that were killed in the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. All of the victims' names were read aloud.
It just reflects on all of us. Like, it's very impactful for all of us.
The South Broward High students spent the morning with Hearts and Crafts, where they wrote inspiring messages.
Wall Street, the Dow gained 49 points. The NASDAQ lost 51. This is CBS News.
It's one of the most successful law and justice programs in television history that continues to uncover the truth. 48 Hours, Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Attention! Have you racked up $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is notifying consumers about significant debt relief options currently being made available to help those with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan, and you may only have to pay back a fraction of what you owe, even if you have bad credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers. So don't wait. If you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living continues to skyrocket. To check what debt reduction you may qualify for, call 800-455-5544. 800-455-5544. Again, that's 800-455-5544.
Good afternoon. I'm staring at a crash over here on 440 eastbound, right near Nolensville Pike. Talk about wrong place, wrong time. There's already a lot of volume in this area trying to get up through here. It's 440 eastbound at Nolensville Pike on this crash. It may have some injuries. Pretty busy on the South Loop. It's heavy trying to get down into Brentwood, Franklin, down into Williamson County. Watch for a little bit of radar down in the Spring Hill area. Stein Dental Care in Nashville. That's where I go, and so should you. Google Stein Dental Care in Nashville. They are the best. I'm Commander Chuck. You're on time traffic.
Local farmers, local meats, vegetables, and other produce at the Winter Spring Rutherford County Farmers Market.
Bundle up and make your way every Friday at Lane Agri Park.
Rutherford weather.
Mostly clear skies and light winds tonight. Lows make it down into the low 30s. Then a chance for showers arrives Saturday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Phil Jensko from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Right now it's 64.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
Order a royal feast or create your own pizza online now at sirpizzatn.com. Carry out and delivery for dinner tonight at sirpizzatn.com.
We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at WGNSradio.com.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast on WGNS, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. It's your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports. Game recaps, player spotlights, and the latest from the heart of Blue Raider Nation. Now, here's your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee, and it is a happy Friday. Both basketball teams breaking off the losing streak, and of course, baseball opening day today at Reese Smith Jr. Field. What is there not to be excited about in today's episode? We're going to do the baseball preview like I promised you last week. We ran out of time, but no better time than opening day today, as the Blue Raiders are currently up on Bellarmine 8-2 in the top of the 7th inning there. So we'll have all that. And then, of course, lots of hoops talk, a lot to be excited about with the performances of both of those teams yesterday. But Before we get into today's episode, I have to thank our presenting sponsor, Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Right now, they're running a new month-to-month pricing that's available only online with no additional fees. The Gold membership is just $25 biweekly with a $40 enrollment, or you could upgrade to the family plan for you and your significant other at $45 biweekly with only a $20 enrollment fee. That membership gives you access to all 16 Gold's Gym locations across Tennessee, along with group exercise classes and childcare. Again, all that's included with no extra fees. So visit Gold's Gym of Tennessee online at goldsgym.com to learn more and find a location near you. Thanks again to Gold's Gym of Tennessee for sponsoring the Blue Raider podcast. If you're not already following us on our social medias at Blue Raider Pod on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and of course on YouTube, make sure you do so you don't miss our weekly uploads. And of course, during hoop season, we will have the live post-game press conferences live streamed on all those as well. The Lady Raiders are in action tomorrow against Kennesaw at 4 p.m., and we'll have that post-game press conference stream there. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you're following us. And if you want to tune into today's show and voice your opinion as we talk baseball, talk hoops, the lines are open. The phone number is 615-893-1450, and our producer here will take your call. Like I said at the top, it is opening day for baseball. They are off to a great start thus far against Bellarmine, up ahead 8-2 in the top of the 7th inning. Like we all saw, the Conference USA preseason selection, Drew Horn, on the mound today. Not necessarily the outing I think we all thought he would have. I mean, no earned runs through 3 innings pitched, gave up 7 hits. Again, very unlike him, but no runs, only 1 run allowed via an error. But altogether, if you're not giving up any runs, and he got into some peculiar situations there early, so he was able to pitch his way out of that. The next question a lot of us thought was who would be the first out of the bullpen this year. Colin Kerrigan gets the nod there in the 4th inning. He goes 3 innings, allows only 1 run, only 2 hits. That's very promising. And now as we speak, going into the 7th inning, Landon Birch is going to potentially carry those last 3 innings. So it's good to see a lot of arms get some action this early on, see what we have, because going into this year, that's obviously the big question mark, is who's going to replace a lot of that pitching depth that they have. My understanding, or at least my speculation tomorrow, was we'll see Chandler Alderman, the freshman phenom 2 years ago, who took a little bit of a step back his sophomore year, but we look forward to, if he can get back in tune to who he was that freshman year, pitching to contact. It's going to be a big second-day starter as the Blue Raiders look to win series in Conference USA. Picked very low on that totem pole this year, but if they're able to right the ship as far as that back half of that bullpen and the back half of that rotation, they think they have the arms to do that, as I already prefaced with Drew Horn being your potentially number 1, and then Alderman being your number 2. Who is going to fill that 3rd spot? And that's something that Coach Jerry Myers played with a lot last year. I personally really like Ethan Robinson, the transfer from Vanderbilt. He's a local talent out of Nashville, Tennessee, at Donaldson Christian. Coming out of high school, had some UCL surgery, but obviously has some upper end velocity that a lot of these guys don't necessarily have. I think going into preseason, he's a guy that could swing either way as far as being a starter or a reliever. He doesn't have a ton of college experience, but obviously is top end talent if you get recruited to go play at Vanderbilt, and he falls his way back down here to Rutherford County. So he's a guy that I certainly like a lot. As another guy that could be potentially in there is the Vol State transfer, Gavin King. Again, another guy with high-end velo that could potentially play both ways as far as starting and relieving. Cole Torbett got some starts last year. Abel Albaran, another guy that could potentially be the starter. And then the back end of that relief, John Michael Pickens, someone who I expect to see at some point this weekend. He might even be your closer in today's matchup in particular, but he was a JUCO All-American at Shelton State, where he threw just over a 2.05 ERA, which is spectacular for relief pitching at over 70 innings last year. Again, a JUCO All-American. And then another guy in relief, Mason Dobbs, who's a Rowan College transfer, had a 1.12 whip, again, over 70 innings pitched. So they have really, really good arms in the bullpen. One of the issues we've seen in the last couple years under Coach Jerry Myers is how does that back end hold up as the season goes on? They had plenty of injuries to their batting lineup last year that certainly hindered them. They have replaced very little as far as the bats go. the team is loaded, in my opinion, as far as production from last year, and the few places that they had to change, I think that they certainly upgraded. But to put a bow on the pitching staff, a lot to be seen. This first weekend is a telltale sign. 1 earned run through 7 innings thus far is a great start. But to the bats, as I was prefacing there, this lineup I think is loaded like it was last year. The run production is there. Can the pitching uphold this great offense that we have? Notably, you've got Brett Von Dolen returning. He's going to be designated hitter. I know he's listed as an infielder, corner infielder, but he's going to be exclusively a DH this year, I would imagine. Hitting 17 home runs last year, 50 RBIs. He himself is off to a great start. Tyler Minnick, one of the top catchers in Conference USA, according to D1 Baseball, actually 25th in the country, according to D1 Baseball, which is quite the honor. And then your middle infield, a group of guys that had to fight some injury last year, Matt Wolf, Cooper Clapp in the middle infield, and then out in the outfield, you're going to return Nate Brewer, who was injured over half the season last year in 2025, got his first at-bat this year and hit a double. Brett Rogers was an all-freshman selection. He has an RBI today as well. So as far outside of that, those are all names you should know if you're following the Blue Raider baseball program. But the names you got to know, and you certainly, if you didn't already know them and you're paying attention to that game today, you're going to remember them. Dean O'Neill, the main transfer, is going to play first base, going to replace a lot of those innings, got basketball in the mind, replacing a lot of those innings that we saw last year from Big Chill. But Dean O'Neill doesn't have the power bat that we saw with Miller last year, but he does have a much improved consistent bat, and we're seeing that today. And I know I knock on his power bat, but he already has a home run in today's matchup, so maybe I'm eating my own words there, but he's 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs early on. And then in the bottom, in center field, is Owen Nowak, a transfer from McHenry County Community College, a guy that batted over 400 in junior college with over 150 RBIs and 61 extra base hits. I'm told he's one of the best defensive outfielders they've had, and that's a high praise for a team that just lost Eston Snyder. But he himself already making himself notable. He too has a home run in his first matchup here, in his first game as a Blue Raider. He's also 2 for 2 with a walk. And he scored 3 runs and has 2 RBIs. So batting in the 9-hole, getting 5 runs of production. A lot of praise for that guy early on, certainly setting some high expectations. But that's Dean O'Neill at first and Owen Nowak, who's going to be in center field. And from what I understand, those guys are going to be staples in those new positions. So you feel really comfortable about this lineup top to bottom. Again, it's all about that pitching staff. Can they stay consistent enough to lead this team to getting 2 wins every weekend? I don't think that they're going to be pushing for a conference championship by means this year. You still have so much top-end talent in Dallas Baptist, but I don't think this team is going to finish bottom of Conference USA like we've seen in years past and like the preseason poll said this year. I believe the number was 10th in Conference USA. I actually like this team more in the middle pack, but can they maintain their health this year like we've seen them struggle with last year? Can the arms in the midweek continue to develop and improve and give them something more as they get closer to the end of the year, something that, again, that also fell apart for them, and pitchers that can consistently throw strikes? I know this year we were told that this staff, the staff has a lot more high upside guys versus what they had last year. So they've hit the portal, found a lot of guys through the JUCO ranks. So I'm excited to see what this baseball team can do for them. But enough of baseball. Let's talk a little basketball. Again, so much to be happy about with what happened this last night. For a matter of fact, the men's basketball team, they snap a 5-game losing streak going on the road, of all places, to Kennesaw and winning 90-87. And if you likely didn't have the opportunity to see that game, They really had no business winning that game, all things considered. I thought Kennesaw was the better team for about 30 minutes of it, and then lo and behold, MTSU fights her way back in those last 10 minutes, gets a very late lead, and for the most part was able to hold on to it. It came down again to free throws at the end, and they drilled every single one of them. Sean Smith with 22 points, including 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Torrey Alston has 21 points, and he actually led the team with just 6 rebounds. But a guy that we've been very, very critical of, Chris Loof, I would say, all things considered, it takes a very ill-advised foul there in the second half that was reviewed and very, in my opinion, fortunate that it wasn't upgraded. It was just a common foul, but didn't necessarily make the game about him. Plus-minus at +11, which is the first time in conference play he's had a plus-minus in the positive, but he had 7 points and 5 rebounds. He affected the game in ways that it wasn't negative, obviously, wasn't getting turnovers, but Kennesaw's known for being a very physical team, and I think having a plus-minus of 11 is promising for Loof. And then Kamari Lands, too, 7 assists with 0 turnovers, a guy that you look to score in big moments, but when he's not able to get to the bucket, him having the IQ to find the open teammate, get to 7 assists, very promising, and that's good stuff from the team collectively, because I thought they played really good team basketball. But my takeaways from last night, you're now sit in 7th place via tiebreakers. I think you're technically in a 3-way tie with Kennesaw and Western in 6th, but via those tiebreakers, if the season ended today, I believe they'd be in 7th place. Good news is you're only 2 games out of 2nd place. The bad news is you're only 2 games out of last place. And so that's where you're looking at these overtime games against FIU, overtime game against Delaware, overtime game against UTEP. If you found a way to close those out in the closing minutes, albeit FIU is cheap, and you could even say the second game against Louisiana Tech was cheap. But if you find a way to win those games, you're looking really, really good. And we've talked all year long about how thin these margins are, and luckily you came out on the road at a team that was undefeated at home, that was Kennesaw State. They were 8-0 this year, by the way, at home. You're the first team to beat them on their home floor this year. And I found out last night through the CBS broadcast, unbeknownst to me, we've never lost to Kennesaw. So you keep that streak alive for what that's worth. But you beat a really good Kennesaw State team for the second time this year, 2-0. Simeon Cottle obviously not there, but the Kennesaw State is still a formidable opponent in this conference, in my opinion, a very well-coached team by Antoine Petway. But the difference in this team last night, I thought the offense, from what I could watch, again, having to watch both games, the offense had their third highest efficiency they've had in conference play this year, and that dates back to the first game against Louisiana Tech and even the Delaware game that went to overtime. The offense was great, one of the better offensive games they've played. However, the defense was bad. I don't know that that's if correlation is causation here, but they sell out for the offense. Things seem to work into their favor. And the other stat I mentioned earlier about hitting the free throws down the stretch, you were 23 of 28. You only missed 5 free throws. That was pivotal when you look back to the Western Kentucky game, not being able to hit the free throws down the stretch. You look at the Louisiana Tech game in Ruston, not being able to hit your free throws down the stretch. Doing the little things like that puts you in prime position to hang on and win those games. And for this team, it's always been the little things that seem to they are their own worst enemy. And when we talk about women's basketball later, that's something out of their playbook. But the excuse for women is they're young, 4 freshmen. This team is experienced. This team obviously has what it takes to win basketball games in this league on the road, no less. Winning at New Mexico State, winning at Kennesaw, those are not places that are particularly easy. So you've got to be able to take care of business because defense travels. It didn't travel at Delaware, and it didn't travel to Kennesaw, but it's going to need to travel to Bowling Green tonight. It's going to need to travel to Huntsville next week when they go to Sam Houston. But the offense showing up like they did in that second half was, I mean, you don't score 90 points, you don't win that basketball game because the defense was so bad. But we're going to be looking ahead to that Western Kentucky matchup. That is tomorrow at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. When we come back from this commercial break, we'll have everything on that 100 Miles of Hate in Bowling Green. And, of course, I can't forget our Lady Raiders and their win last night against Jacksonville State. But we'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com Jennings and Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
When it comes to building your dream home in Rutherford County, America's Home Place has the winning game plan. Step into the Mount Juliet showroom and call your own plays. Pick the house plan, flooring, cabinets, countertops, and more, all under one roof. Build it your way on your land with a builder you can trust. Visit 4157 North Mount Juliet Road or call 615-784-0030. America's Home Place, helping Rutherford County families score big with custom homes.
This is Shirley Lay inviting you to come and visit us at Adams Place. Well, you don't have to clean your room. Come for the good food. There's not much I don't like at Adams Place. Oh, I just like it all. But I've usually got my head in a book. We got a library here. Come join us at Adams Place.
This is Terry Deal. Call me at 615-904-9111. Adams Place on Memorial across from Walmart.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Auctions are easy, fast, and profitable.
I've always been a big fan of auctions. Get instant sale, no contingencies.
That means the sale of your property won't depend on an inspection, financing, or appraisals.
I've known the guys over there my entire life.
Call Parks Auction and Realty or visit parksauction.com.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
Good afternoon. Trying to clear this wreck up. It's causing a pretty good backup over in the Berry Hill area on 440 eastbound, right here at Nolensville Pike. It's struggling now all the way back to Hillsboro Pike. That's in the eastbound lanes of 440 over here at Nolensville Pike. It's got things clogged up pretty good. Heavy to the north right on Schedule 65 up through the Madison area. Watch for radar 24 out through Rutherford County. STR Towing and Recovery says give them a call 24/7 here in Middle Tennessee if you need their help. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
This is the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, 100.5 Smyrna, WGNSradio.com, and the Blue Raider Podcast YouTube channel. Now, back to your host, Jake Bolden.
Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Men's basketball snapped their 5-game losing streak last night in Kennesaw, Georgia, defeating the Owls 90-87, but they have to avenge a loss in the 100 Miles of Hate series against Western Kentucky tomorrow at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're not already following us on our social media at Blue Raider Pod, again, that's X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, make sure you're doing so you don't miss another one of our episodes. And if you want to call into the show, our lines are open at 615-893-1450, and our producer here will take your call. Before we get into basketball, just another score update for you. Baseball is ahead right now at home against Bellarmine, 8-2 in the top of the 8th inning. And then actually the softball program is down in Chattanooga, and they are also facing Bellarmine. They are currently trailing the Knights 1-0 in the bottom of the second, just getting underway there. And also men's tennis. They are at home today against Louisville. They just started off with the doubles, currently doing favorable, but nothing is locked into place right now. Just some things to keep your eyes on in today's world of Middle Tennessee athletic sports. But we were talking about men's basketball and them snapping that 5-game losing streak. The big question going into this Western Kentucky game is, do you feel as a fan that this season has been saved with the win at Kennesaw? Do you feel like it could be even more saved with a win in Bowling Green, avenging that home loss amidst that 5-game losing streak to a rather down Western Kentucky team? I don't know where you stand in it. I certainly feel a lot better after winning against Kennesaw, going on this 4-game road stretch, knowing every game got worse and you lost arguably the quote-unquote easiest game at Delaware in overtime. But going to Bowling Green, if you come out of this road trip at 2-2, you certainly feel better. The Sam Houston game next week is going to be tough. They are arguably the second best team, aside Liberty from what I've seen this year. Missouri State is probably in that argument as well, but winning against Western Kentucky on Saturday would certainly would right a lot of wrongs, if you will. But we have a caller coming in right now. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Jake, this is Sean in Murfreesboro, enjoying a beautiful day out here at the MTSU baseball stadium. Always love the show. Just wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about what you see as the ceiling for the men's and women's basketball teams in Huntsville. Kind of a weird spot for the men's team right now, as I'm sure you talked about with the 100 miles of hate coming up. You know, they could finish anywhere between 2nd and 10th, and it wouldn't really surprise me. And the women's team, even though it looks like they don't have a real shot of catching La Tech for the 1 spot, they certainly still got a shot at the 2. Appreciate all you do covering the university and the programs. Love the show. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Sean, for calling in. Addressing the question of ceilings, certainly something you think about going into this last week on the Lady Raiders side. That was something Coach Insel looked at was, we'll talk again after this road trip. Missouri State, FIU, it's a tough one. We already talked about geography last week, but those two teams provide interesting challenges. They dropped both of those. Luckily, you're going to get a second chance against both of those schools in your last Conference USA series. The ceiling, though, for that team, in my opinion, as far as regular season goes, that first place spot is going to be tough. I don't think Louisiana Tech is going to lose another game in conference this year. I'd have to look at their schedule. The only team that I think could potentially provide them some challenges is Missouri State because of Kamen Beckmeyer and her scoring ability. I think realistically, though, this team just out of reach of that 2 spot. You hold the tiebreaker over Sam Houston right now because you're not going to play them again this year. So if you can find a way for them to lose another game, and they're very susceptible of it because of their tendencies on offense to just fall on their face. So I think second place is realistic for this team. Even in worst case scenarios, they're probably in third place entering Huntsville. I think all that's okay if you finish second or third in the regular season because you're on the opposite side of the bracket of Louisiana Tech, which for all the reasons we've talked about this year is a matchup problem for them. So if you can avoid them to the championship game, all the better. I think that this team is still talented enough to beat Louisiana Tech. I've made the argument all year that the Lady Raiders are more talented than anybody in this conference. Louisiana Tech is talented, but when they play as a team, they don't turn the ball over. I think that you could make an argument that they can beat Louisiana Tech because they had the benefit of playing in Ruston this year. So, and obviously they have a great home court advantage, as do most teams in this conference. So getting them on a neutral floor, as much of a home court advantage as Huntsville is, things can certainly change. And ideally, you're playing your best basketball in March. So I think the ceiling for them, I don't see why your standard needs to change, even though you're starting 4 freshmen. I think they're a conference championship team. The men on the other side, you say top 2nd to 10th. I wouldn't even take out 12th out of a possibility for this basketball team, and that's not even a slight at the basketball team. That's to say how tight this conference is from 2nd all the way down to 12th. We've seen Liberty as good as they are because of how efficient they are on offense, and that's something that no one in this conference has outside of them. All these teams are defensively sound for the most part. There's a few exceptions to that, but these teams are beating each other up on a nightly basis, and you can't afford to lose. That 5-game losing streak really stings because, again, as I said in the last segment, even if you're able to steal one here or there, you certainly feel a lot better about your chances of solidifying that spot, at least in the conference tournament. But right now, you're only 2 games out of being either in second place or 2 games out from being in dead last. And losing that game to Delaware, that's a tiebreak there. The other team there with 4 losses is FIU, so you don't feel great about the tie breaks at this point. So you have to win games. Their ceiling, I mean, if they play like the team we saw last night on the offensive end, or even earlier in conference play against Louisiana Tech, the first half of the second game against Louisiana Tech, I really didn't even hate them against Liberty and Western Kentucky and their losses earlier. The win at New Mexico State, this team has high potential. The ceiling I've seen, I don't know that this team is good enough to win Conference USA. I do think they have ability to make the Conference USA semis, which I know a lot of you may roll your eyes at that because that's just kind of been the standard over the last couple of seasons, but I think this team is capable of getting to that second tier. Can they break the seal finally this year and get to the Conference USA Championship? I think the talent is there, but if they hit a lull like they did just now going into conference tournament season, it scares me to say the least. and even going into conference tournament, you're going to have two road games to conclude the year. You have a nice little home stretch here against the bottom half of the conference that you feel a little bit better about, hopefully to get, again, more wins under your belt and solidify at least a spot there in Huntsville. But it is paramount that you try to get into that 2-3 spot for the same reason the ladies are, to get out of playing that number one team. So great question, Sean. I know I probably went on a longer tangent than that, but than I originally had wanted to. But those are good questions to be asking. We're less than a month away from Conference USA tournament, so where do these teams stand? In particular, this Saturday on the road in Bowling Green for the men, this Western Kentucky team is hard to really put a pin on. They've won 2 of their last 3. Going into the game, the 100 Miles of Hate here in Murfreesboro, they were on their own 4-game losing streak. They had some injuries with Armello Boone, who ended up playing in that game. Tegan Moore had a concussion against Liberty. He hasn't played since that Liberty game. We're up to 5 games now he hasn't played, but in Coach Plona's midweek interview, he did say that he was optimistic that Tegan Moore would return, who is the leading scorer for the Toppers. So that's definitely, again, a storyline you have to pay attention to, because they are a more dynamic team with Tegan Moore handling the basketball. But as I said earlier, they're currently in 6th place via tiebreakers. 2 games out of second, 2 games out of last. Got to win every single game to this point. But looking back to that 65-60 heartbreak here, MTSU only made 4 threes in that game, shooting 21% from 3. They had Western Kentucky's Cade Unseld, who's a 26% three-point shooter, made 5 threes in that game. Going into the game, he only made 12 all year and nearly doubled his production in that game alone. Blaze Keita, the 6'11 post, had 14 rebounds. And then after scoring 16 points in the first half, Kamari Lands only made 2 shots in the second half. I know I didn't put it there in my notes, but I know the free throw line certainly killed the Blue Raiders there in that game. But the free throw line is a lot to do with the success of Western Kentucky. As I previewed earlier this year, they do all their damage at the free throw line. They have one of the highest free throw rates in the country, getting to the free throw line 25 times a game. And you would think that would be the recipe to beat them, because when they played here at MTSU, they only had 10, and we still lost. And then against FIU recently in their last game last Saturday where they won, they got to the free throw line 13. So in their most 2 recent wins, they're not going to the free throw line. So I don't know that that's necessarily what you need to do to beat them. But I do know you need to defend the three-point line well, because that is something that they did do very well that they abnormally do not do. They made 13 threes against FIU last Saturday. They made 9 against MTSU in their last win here. But that is the 13 they made against FIU is the second most they've made in a conference game this year. So you have to keep your eyes peeled on that. And you can't turn the ball over. Creating extra possessions, allowing a team like Western Kentucky to get into transition because they want to get to the rim. If they can extend their offense from their defense, it becomes a track meet. And silly turnovers, and we saw some of those late against Kennesaw that almost came back to bite them. But Western Kentucky is very, very good at extending their offense and getting to the rim quickly. So not being silly with the ball, running that half-court offense that we saw at times do really well last night can certainly... You can avoid, I'm going to say disaster, but at this point, any loss feels like a disaster. And this is a team that you should beat, even if Tegan Moore is playing, but especially if Tegan Moore is not playing, you're the more talented team on the floor. But if Tegan Moore's not, the other names to keep an eye on, we already know Armello Boone, the shoe-in for Conference Freshman of the Year. He's kind of struggled since returning against MTSU 3 games ago with that leg injury. I say struggling relatively. He's still averaging 9 points and 5 rebounds a game since coming back from injury, but before that he was averaging almost 12 points, 9 rebounds. So he's not to his normal self, so he hasn't been much of a factor, but who has taken those steps with Tegan Moore and Boone not playing particularly well? It's number 8, Grant Newell, the 6'9 senior. He scored in double figures in 8 consecutive games. He had 23 last Saturday against FIU on 5 made three-pointers. And then down in the post, Blaze Keita, the guy that had 14 rebounds against us earlier this year, he had a 12 and 10 double-double against FIU last Saturday as well. So they certainly have some talent that's spread out. With Tegan Moore and Armello Boone, you know they're going to get the ball if they're both in the game. With one of them missing, it certainly adds a different dimension. They kind of have to dig deep on their half-court offense, which again is why it's paramount that you run a good offense to allow yourself to set up a good defense and don't let Western beat you up and down the floor. Bottom line for this one, though, I don't want to go as far as say that winning this saves the season. You still have a lot you have to do well down the stretch here. but winning would certainly go a long way with one more road contest in this stretch going to Sam Houston next week. But a loss makes that a lot more difficult for you. Quickly as we wrap up today's episode, women's basketball, they beat Jack State last night. Blair Bogus, 17 points, 16 rebounds. That's her 10th double-double of the year. If you're curious like me, you want to know what's the freshman double-double record? Well, it's Ebony Rose, 16. That was what we believe. We can't go back too awfully far, but she had 16 double-doubles as a freshman. So if Blair, taking conference tournament out of it, if she were to get a double-double every game, she could at least tie it, and then going into the conference tournament, she could extend that record. Macy last night has 12 points, 8 rebounds, and they held Jack State to their second lowest scoring total of the year by just 1 point at 48. So one thing that Coach Insel said last night that I thought was interesting was that this team can't handle prosperity, meaning that they just can't bury teams. And they held a 13-point lead in the first quarter last night, and that certainly got tight. They held a 7-point lead against Missouri State, 14-point lead against FIU. So there certainly was less than ideal situation as far as burying teams last night. But they have Kennesaw coming in. They're on a 2-game winning streak themselves with wins over Liberty and Western Kentucky. Defensively, they play much better. They were specifically defending the three-point line particularly well in those 2 games. So a lot of challenge is going to be on, can they win the three-point battle this game? They had struggled there in their win earlier this year in Kennesaw when they won 60-47. AC scored 18 despite only making 2 threes. Blair had her season high 25 points, 10 rebounds in that Conference USA opener. It's been a long time, but those teams, this team has changed a whole lot, and same could be said for Kennesaw for that matter. So take care of business. You got 2 girls to guard. Kiara Berry, the 5'9" grad, CUSA selection. She's 6th in Conference USA at 14 points, and then Trent Taylor, 9.6 rebounds in their last game. So take care of business there. Limit the foul trouble. They're really good down in the post. Continue that rebounding emphasis you had last night, and of course, as always, win that turnover battle. So we're running out of time here in today's episode. Again, baseball wins 8-2. Softball currently in a 1-1 knot in the bottom of the 3rd down in Chattanooga against Bellarmine. We'll have plenty more from you next week, more about baseball. Actually, we'll have Brett Walker joining the show next week. But thanks to you for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Reminder to follow us on social media at Blue Raider Pod, at X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And if you tuned into our live stream on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss another one of our weekly episodes. We're going to be kicking it over to Brian Barrett and John Dinkins, who are covering tonight's Riverdale at Siegel. Thanks to my producer, Jackson Smith, and you're listening to the Blue Raider Podcast presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is opening day in Blue Raider baseball as Coach Jerry Myers and the Blue Raider baseball team hosting an opening weekend series against Bellarmine. And, you know, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with the weather. Today, a 60-degree day. There's a little rain over the weekend, but it looks like they're going to be able to get all 3 games in. Saturday at 1 o'clock, Sunday at 1 o'clock for Middle Tennessee and Bellarmine at Reese Smith Jr. Field. Hope you can make it out this weekend to watch the boys play. Last night, basketball still going on in Conference USA. On the men's side, this week, there were 5 midweek games. All 5 road teams got wins, including the Blue Raiders last night at Kennesaw. The Blue Raiders snapping a 5-game losing skid when they knocked off Kennesaw by a score of 90-87 last night at ViStar Arena, and remaining undefeated all time against Kennesaw in basketball. Middle is 10-0 against Kennesaw all time. It was Alec Oglesby who got the Blue Raiders started. Sean Smith was terrific all game. Closed out the first half with a bucket to pull Middle within 4. Then had his first 20-point game ever in a Blue Raider uniform that included some free throws down the stretch that wrapped things up for Middle. And the Blue Raiders won it by a score of 90-87 against Kennesaw. Short turnaround time now as the Blue Raiders have just 1 day of work today to take on Western Kentucky tomorrow in Bowling Green. They'll be trying to get back from a 5-point loss to the Hilltoppers a couple of weeks ago. Last night, around Conference USA, we mentioned the games that were played. Delaware won on the road at FIU, 68-66. Louisiana Tech, in 2 overtimes, defeated Missouri State, 79-78. Looking back to Wednesday, it was UTEP winning at Jacksonville State, 69-64, and Liberty won at New Mexico State, 77-75. And we talk about 5 road teams winning. The 3 games last night, Middle's 3-point win at Kennesaw was the largest point spread of any of the games. Kind of crazy what's going on right now in Conference USA. And you look at the standings, and it's just as crazy there. Liberty at 13-0 has run away from the field, but then you've got Sam Houston, Jacksonville State, Louisiana Tech, Missouri State, Kennesaw, Western Kentucky, Middle, all within 2 games of each other. Then UTEP, FIU, and Delaware, a couple of games behind that group, and New Mexico State is now in last place with a record of 4-10. The Lady Raiders last night got back on the winning track as well, as they knocked off Jacksonville State by a score of 57-48. And the Blue Raiders out-rebounded the Gamecocks 39-26 and outscored Jacksonville State 24-14 in the paint, while post players Blair Bogus and Macy Pfeiffer combined for 29 points and 24 rebounds while committing just 4 combined fouls. So looking at other games in Conference USA last night on the women's side, it was Kennesaw winning at Western Kentucky 55-51. Liberty won at home against UTEP 58-48. Delaware won at home against New Mexico State 65-62. Sam Houston over Missouri State 74-67. Louisiana Tech down FIU 71-49. And now the Lady Raiders get ready to host Kennesaw State. That will be a 4 o'clock game tomorrow at the Murphy Center. That's it for today, folks. We'll have another update coming up next week, but a lot of basketball tomorrow. You can hear it on the Big G, WGNS.
This has been All Sports Talk on WGNS and Big G TV, where we hit every level of the game, from the preps to MTSU, across Tennessee and the nation. Thanks for tuning in to All Sports Talk from the Good Neighbor Network.